I
Thank you, Kevin, very much for doing the minutes. Appreciate that. Okay. I think we'll get started with Eleanor. Um, just by way of background, Eleanor is our CEC and CSC coordinator extraordinaire. I must say she's been so helpful in terms of advising us with the different actions, because there are a lot of specifics to some of the actions that we need clarification. So really appreciate it, Eleanor. So do you want to get started? I think you said you had a slide presentation, and then we'll do your presentation and we'll leave plenty of time for questions, because I'm sure there will be lots of questions. And then we have another presentation coming up around a little after 5:30, 5:40. So I think we should really get started.
So, Eleanor, you need to be made co-host to share screen.
Yes, sorry. Yes, let me see if I can share my screen. Yep, I do need to be it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
All right, well, try now. I just made you co-host.
Okay. Share screen. See. Okay. I'm beginning. It's doing that weird thing. Can you see the actual presentation, or does it still look like a PowerPoint that I'm?
no,
Still looks like a PowerPoint, huh?
Yeah, we're seeing next slide on the
Oh, geez.
right
Here, let me try
side.
this. Is that better?
yes.
Okay.
Great.
Awesome. Okay. So this is, thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate it. So my name is Eleanor. I know a couple of you. So this is about the Clean Energy Communities program. I know you all are, relatively familiar with it, so I won't, belabor too much. I just wanted to tell a little bit first about the Hudson Valley Regional Council. This is the organization that I work for. We work in a number of different areas, including all of the ones listed here. And I'm here to talk about clean energy communities, and I can also help with climate smart communities. These are the Clean Energy Communities coordinators for our region, and I provide support to Rockland, Orange, Ulster, and Sullivan counties.
Cool.
So this is a little bit about CEC. I think I'm going to fly through this because you all are already participating in CEC. We've already done this, but the program has changed recently. So you all are one of the dark blue dots. You have already been designated a clean energy community by NYSERDA. On this map, you have over 3,000 points, but they recently changed the program. And they changed it to vastly increase the grants that are available for municipalities, and they changed it to increase the points, the number of actions that are available in the program. So I think Socrates is going to be well positioned to take advantage of this. So this is how you operate in the program. You complete actions. The more energy an action saves, the more points you get. You reach different designation levels and you get more grants. And more points equals more grants, basically. And it's first come, first served. And I will say, I think this money is going to go very quickly. They just put $25 million into the program in basically December 2023. And I think they've already spent over 10% of it. So the more quickly you can move, the better off you will, the more grants you'll be able to achieve. There's two types of grants in the program, and Socrates has already achieved both of them. There's action grants that you can achieve for conducting community campaigns. Back in 2021, Socrates did the Solarize Ulster campaign with Ulster County, and you got 200 points, and you got you should have gotten I wasn't your coordinator back then, but I'm pretty sure you got an action grant for completing that campaign. And then the designation grants are those ones where, like, the more points you get, the more grants you get. Those are designation grants. In this new program that they just revised in December, there's 2 additional opportunities. So you can get a free energy audit for one of your municipal buildings if you complete benchmarking, which is, monitoring your energy usage in the municipal buildings for 2 years. So that's can be basically a free energy study valued up to, $7,000 basically for one building. And also communities that receive grants worth more than $5,000, they're eligible to increase that grant amount if they're located in a disadvantaged community and they spend the money in the disadvantaged community by 50%. So that's going to be a pretty big increase. So these are the grant levels. They are set to decrease after October. And again, it's all first come, first serve. So I don't know exactly how long the funding will last, hopefully after October. So you've already received your CEC designation. You have already surpassed 1,000 and you've surpassed 3,000 points. So my goal is to get you all to this 5,000 point level, 3-star designation. So you can earn a $1,000 grant for completing actions.
$1,000?
100,000.
Thank you. Been a long weekend. It's 5 p.m. $100,000. Good grief. As you can see, there's also 7,000 point grants and 9,000 point grants that go above and beyond. And like I said, any of these grants that you would earn could be increased by 50% if you're located in the disadvantaged community. So this is basically just repeating. I should have removed this one. I thought I did. Here we are. So this is a list of all of the actions. It loads slowly, but they're coming. It doesn't look like too many more actions than there were previously if you've seen a slide like this that I showed a couple years ago or last year, but they made tiers for a lot of the actions, right? So they made tiers for CCA, which we're going to talk about in a minute. They made tiers for clean fleets. You can get credit for the more chargers you have, the more points you can get, the more electric vehicles you have, the more points you can get. They tiered clean energy upgrades. They tiered a lot of things basically, which is great. And this is what Socrates has done. So you've got 3,400 points in the program. You've completed 9 actions. And this is a list of everything right here. Now, the next slide is still a slide, but I have a spreadsheet that I want to show you, which is sort of like a plan to get you all significant funding through the program. So we'll go over that spreadsheet in a couple minutes. But the one thing, and I had already sent this to Mary and Kathleen at the town, but because you renewed your CCA in 2023, I believe you're eligible for 500 additional points for CCA because you had a 50% renewable CCA that was implemented in 2023. So that's great. So that's something we can submit whenever you're ready. I sent the documentation over that I received from Jewel Assets, the CCA administrator. So you should be ready to go for that. So that's 500 more points right there.
Can I just stop you for a second? Because on CCA, we do have the 1,500 points because the town had the 100% default option in the original CCA. So this, just to be clear, this would be an additional 500 points.
Yes. This is a new action, and essentially you are, it's in this last bullet here. You can see municipalities are eligible for this action if they signed a contract on or after January 1st, 2023. Municipalities that were approved for the action prior to this new program and that was launched in December have to resubmit to earn points if they sign a new contract, which you did. So we are good to go for that.
Thanks.
So that's in addition to the 3,400 we have now?
Yes, you have 3,400 and we know you can get 3,900. So keeping track. Yep. This one is renewable energy. So this is a few different actions in one. And the one I wanted to point out, because Mary, you had emailed me about this, is the CDG subscription. So this is if the town has a subscription to a community solar array for any of its municipal electric accounts, you can get credit 300 points for the CDG subscription, community distributed generation. So does the town have community solar subscription for its accounts?
Yes,
Mary?
it does.
Yes, it does. And I've been collecting some information on that.
Great.
And I've got the contract and I've got a list of the facilities that are supplied. And just today, the town didn't know how many kilowatt hours they'd received, but just today I got information. This started in 2019. And we have accumulated over 6 million kilowatt hours
Wow.
in that time.
Wonderful.
The problem I'm having with the forms is
Mhm.
there's 17 different accounts that are being supplied by this landfill, the thing we have, landfill.
Mhm.
There's five, there's 5 things on the registration form where to put it. Can we
Yep.
just say, hey, here, we
Here
have
are
17
5.
accounts and we've gotten 6 million kilowatt hours just in one line, or do I have to suss out each of the individual accounts and how much each of those individual accounts receive? Because that's going to be
A pain.
really a pain.
Yeah.
It was hard enough to find out the, the amount of kilowatt hours. But
Mhm.
so the other question is that total kilowatt hours an applicable
annual.
number, or do I have to break that down into some sort of time frames?
Great questions, Skip. Let's tell you what, I don't know, I do not know the answer to that. So let me follow up with you all about that, because I don't know. It's a great question.
Because these tiers, we blew out all these tiers.
You certainly did. Well, these tiers are different, right? These tiers are for different actions within renewable energy category. We're talking about the community distributed generation subscription.
Oh, I see. That's
which
that's
is
a host.
yes. However, you mentioned landfill. Does the town own the landfill on which the community solar array is based?
Right now, here's another thing we needed to talk to you about. Yes, and it was installed in 2019.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can get you credit for the community solar subscription, but unfortunately not the you can see here in the second. Oops. Oh geez.
No, it's
so frustrating. Oh, this is, you had emailed me about this. Yes.
yes, and it's very, very frustrating because we're ahead of the curve on all this stuff, and yet we're being limited, and we proved how good we are at this stuff.
Yeah.
And by your email, it seems like we are being penalized because we were out in front of the curve. We've proved what we can do, but we were being limited in the points we can get toward grants because of our, tenaciousness.
Yes.
Anything we can do about that?
Yes. There is not anything you can do about that in this program, right? You are welcome. And Mary, I think we've discussed this before. You're welcome to email the CEC email address and state your case. And I'm happy to be copied on that email. But this is, I explained in my email, and we can even pull it up too, that NYSERDA it's a push and pull, right, between rewarding early adopters and ensuring that this program is doing what it's supposed to do, which is to encourage municipal governments to take new clean energy actions. And they need to do that they need to do that to continue to get funding from the Public Service Commission, right? That's how they need to show that they have actually moved the needle on emissions reductions, and their program did that, right? And the longer the look back periods that they give, the less likely they are to actually show that they had an impact. Their program had an impact. So that's where they're coming from. I will say I know it's extremely frustrating for communities. Like I don't know if I put this in my email, but there were a lot of and maybe I did put this in my email. There were a lot of municipalities that signed their CCA contracts in November 2022. Like every community in Westchester, most of the communities in Rockland and Orange, right? And they're out potentially 2,000 points, right? Because their actions were, a month ahead of the curve. And frankly, there's every community that I speak to, there's something that they've done where they're not going to be able to get credit for something that is really great at reducing emissions. And it's frustrating, but at the same time, I think, we're in a position in the Mid-Hudson region where a lot of our communities are ahead of the curve. And this money is statewide money. And we have to make sure that this money can be attributed statewide, right? So if we took all the money down here, then, no one else in the rest of in the state would be able to have any chance at achieving this. So this is a long way of saying, I know it's frustrating. I totally hear you, but I also think, they have to do this program within the bounds of what they're allowed to do. And this is how the dice ended up rolling.
Okay, well, let's at least coach me on how I can use the figures that I have for the CDG
Yes,
to
absolutely.
get as many points as we can there.
Absolutely.
Because-
Yeah. No, we can chat through that. I think it might be good for me. Let me check in with NYSERDA about how you should fill out that form
Right.
if you have 17 accounts, and I'll circle back with you about that for sure.
Right. So you're gonna get a hold of me and let me know about that.
I sure will.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Yes.
This is Ken Goldberg. I've got a question about the landfill solar array.
Mhm, mhm.
It went into operation in 2019, that's true. But is there anything that might change that would be considered for the hosting a solar array on municipal property beyond the 2023 time period? I mean, for example, if they change their name, if we signed a new contract, I'm just wondering if anything would be considered as starting it up again, as differentiated from the original hosting agreement.
You know, that's a good question. Here, I'm going to pull up the actual guidance document. We can look at it
Hmm.
together. Can you
Okay.
see my browser here? Let's see. So this is the actual requirements for the yeah, no, it's all about when the clean energy installation started producing electricity. So as long as you're hosting that solar array that started producing electricity before 2021, you're not eligible for this action.
Okay, let me ask a slightly different question. I do see at the beginning of this, it talks about the rooftop, municipal rooftops, parking lots, and so on.
Mhm.
If the town puts solar arrays on a town building rooftop beyond 2023, would that be acceptable?
Yes, absolutely. New solar is, yeah, that's the whole point of
would-
this program, is to encourage new adoption of
It
technologies.
was just one town building
Mhm.
that had new solar array put on, that would be acceptable.
Yes, there's tiers, right? So it depends on the size of the system, how many points you get, right? So if it's a 5 to 49, that's most rooftops, I would imagine. You get 400 points, and then the bigger ones get additional points on top of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Let me see if I can. Oh, what did I say from beginning? Oh, geez. Here, let me. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk to you all about is vehicles and charging stations. I know you all have so many charging stations in the town. Have any of them been installed since 2021?
I would have to look that up.
Okay.
We have 5. The one that was at the ice arena was quite a while ago.
Mhm.
But I'd have to look up the dates of the others to exactly know when they were installed.
great.
It was the last few years.
Great. Yeah. So any stations installed after 2021, you can get credit for tier 1, so 200 points. And then you can get additional points if you install new charging stations moving forward. So after December 13th, 2023, new stations you can include like this one's really convoluted. And I pushed for this convolutedness, but because I wanted folks to be able to get credit for older charging stations. So essentially every charging station you include has to be installed after 2021. But for tier 2 and 3, one port has to be installed after 2023, but you can include the old stations in your additional tiers. Does that make sense? It's
No.
like-
Do that again.
So essentially say you have eight charging stations, so 16 ports. You can only get credit for all 3 tiers, even though you have 8 charging stations, if they were all installed after January 2021, and if two of the charging stations were installed after December 2023. So you
Hmm.
can get credit for all of the stations installed after 2021, but 2 of them have to be new to get credit for tier 2 and tier 3. You need 1 new port for tier 2 and 1 new port for tier
Okay.
3.
After when? 2023?
December 13th, 2023.
13th?
Yeah. Yeah, this is
No.
probably going to work well because our first one was 2019, and I don't think we did any after 2023, Kathleen, but
No.
I think this is going to be another situation where Saugerties had their first charging station in 2019. And once again, because of the time limitations, that Saugerties will be denied any points for this, but we'll check into it further, but I don't see a pathway here.
Well, hopefully you can get credit. Hopefully some of the stations were installed after 2020 after January 2021, because that's the tier 1. You can get credit for 200 points if you have any stations installed after January 26th, 2021.
Now, we have already, we've submitted all those charging stations. It would be nice if you could carry that information over, since it's already been submitted.
To the Climate Smart program.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. No, I know they are 2 separate state agencies, unfortunately. I will say that it usually goes the opposite way, like what you submit in the Clean Energy Communities program. All you have to submit to the Climate Smart program then is your approval email from NYSERDA. But it doesn't go the opposite way where you can submit your Climate Smart credit for clean energy credit. Does that make sense? It's like, I agree. There are 2 programs. I will say they are considering getting rid of the Clean Energy Communities program after 2026 and just streamlining it so there's 1 program. But that would mean getting rid of the no match grants, right? Because the Climate Smart program doesn't have any no match grants. It just has that competitive Climate Smart Communities grants program with the 50% match. Okay, so moving on.
Oh, while you had clean fleets here,
Mhm.
I just have a question. I'm Kathleen, I'm the grant writer.
Mhm.
You didn't talk about fleets as vehicles. Is that coming up someplace?
You know what? I skipped over it because I was thinking about charging stations, but I had put it ahead.
Okay, so let me just say one thing. I just discovered that Central Hudson has a fleet assessment service, which they will work with the municipality, doing a fleet inventory, doing a plan for upgrading to EVs or hybrids.
Yep.
And estimating the savings cost, the reduction in emissions.
It's
And
a
I'm
great
just-
service. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that would be acceptable if we had a program like that done, which would assist the staff in doing it. Because I can tell you, about 1.5 or 2 years ago, I contacted our person in charge of fleets and asked for all the information they asked for, which is, how many miles are on it, what's the model, when was it registered, this, and this. And I really got pushed back about it being too complicated and then not having time. However, since the state is really pushing for moving to electrical vehicles, to take advantage of this service would probably be worth it for the town, I think. And I haven't even spoken to everybody else about this because I just found this today. But because transportation emissions are the second largest in our climate action plan statistics, it seems it would make sense to try to do this, because I think the assistance of Central Hudson getting involved and working with the municipality would help greatly.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we would get credit for it if we went through the Central Hudson program.
So it's a great question. So there's not a specific action for that Central Hudson program, but there is, the same action like what you were talking about, which folks said was too tricky. The the fleet inventory action. They've added that to this program. So my understanding, I've seen one of those fleet assessments that Central Hudson does, and I believe they would require most, if not all, of the information from the municipality that this fleet inventory here would, right? Like you need the like what you were just saying, the odometer readings, the MPG readings of the vehicles, what types of vehicles they are, the make and model, what their use is. So Central Hudson needs most of that to do that fleet assessment. And but I agree. I've seen what comes out of those fleet assessments, and they're really great documents and useful planning tools for municipalities to have. So I would highly recommend working with Central Hudson to do that. And and you would be able to, I believe, essentially get a fleet inventory out of that Central Hudson assessment once it's all said and done. So, and this is another action that I would recommend. These are the things you need to have in this fleet inventory. But I don't know, I think it would still sort of require your DPW Department of Public Works folks getting you similar information.
Yeah, maybe they would respond better to Central Hudson people working with them.
It's a great idea. Yep.
They were just given a spreadsheet to fill out, and they just said, we don't have time to research all this.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm on my own community's climate task force, and I got the same reaction.
Well, the according to this, the registration of the vehicle is going to have most of this information on it. Model, type of fuel, mileage class, blah, 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 gross vehicle weight.
Yeah.
So maybe
that may be true. All I can say is I got pushback.
Oh, well, I'm sure you did.
They said, we don't have time. They just looked at it and said, we don't have time. I got some from the police department, but I didn't get the rest.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
Okay, so let's see here. So I think that's a great idea, Kathleen, working with Central Hudson, and I think Central Hudson can show you some examples too of what they look like and what you'll get out of it. And that might help incentivize the community, the DPW folks to participate, hopefully.
I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but the track record of our working with Central Hudson about CCA and all was not very positive. So I hope that this might be a different experience.
Yes. They have hired a contractor to do these fleet assessments. So you would not really be working too much with the Central Hudson team directly, but a consulting firm that is pretty good, in my opinion. So that might help. Yeah. So I think yes. So I stopped on Climate Smart because this is somewhere where I think Socrates is really coming out on top. I know you all are frustrated with some of the other actions, but you all just submitted for your Climate Smart recertification. And previously, Climate Smart was only eligible for 600 points in the Clean Energy Communities program if you were Climate Smart certified, bronze. But they've upped that point value. So now you'll be eligible for 800 points. But you're only eligible if you recertify. And you all were already recertifying this year, and we're going to hear back pretty soon, right, about your recertification status. So this is, I think you all are going to be getting another 800 points for your Climate Smart certification that that will be coming
even
soon.
before doing silver?
800 or 200?
800 points for bronze certification, for recertifying as bronze.
Oh, wow, that's great. I thought we had to get up to silver, and we had already got the 800 points, but that's not true. The 34 does not include the 800 for the recertification?
It does not.
Oh,
It
wow.
does not. And if you do reach silver, there's another 600. They really upped the points that are out there for Climate Smart. So you would be eligible for another 600 points on top of your bronze when you get silver.
So may I just clarify, please? We already got points for bronze. I believe the number was
600.
800. Okay, we got that. So that's part of our scorecard. That's part of our 3,400.
Yep.
So are you saying that when we get recertified, we keep the 800 and we get an additional 800? Is that right?
Almost. You got 600. You can see here for Climate Smart certification,
Okay.
600 points. And they now when you recertify, you will be eligible for 800 more points for being bronze certified because they increase the points that are available.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that it would be in addition to the 600 that we originally had.
It will. It will.
So just to review here, we're getting 800 for that, and we're getting 500 for the CCA.
Yep.
And 300 for the
So that
CDG.
means we're
Over.
we are at.
You all are getting ahead of me here, but I appreciate it. Yes. So this is
So
the
we would be at about 4,700 points.
Yep. And
So we're almost at the 5,000.
you are almost there. You are almost there. And
Whoa.
you know, I had checked off the fleet inventory too. This is the spreadsheet that I can you all see this okay? Should I make it bigger?
Yeah, a little bigger.
There we go. I have a huge screen, so it looks big to me, but I know when you're on a laptop, it's small. So this is a spreadsheet with all the actions, so we can actually count up your actions. So currently you have 3,400 points.
Right.
If we check off the CDG subscription, I had checked off community solar tier 2. I don't I know that there's an organization right now called the Mid-Hudson Energy Transition that reached out to a bunch of towns and villages in Ulster County about doing a community solar campaign. Your town supervisor, I believe, got a letter about that. But if you all wanted to participate in that community solar campaign, if you got 50 participants, which is a lot, but if they would be sending out mailers to every household and incentivizing it that way, then you could get 300 more points. I can
Wow.
send a follow-up email about that if it's of interest. I checked off Climate Smart Bronze. I checked off the 500 points for the CCA, and then I checked off the fleet inventory. Which maybe it sounds like that. If we uncheck that, I think you're still good. So really, with just those, we're at 5,300. So
Oh.
yes, so that's what am I
Yeah,
doing here?
I'm not seeing
Here we
50.
go.
That includes the CDG, which we haven't quite gotten, but that's
That's
part
the
of it.
300. That's the 300.
We have
Oh,
CDG.
right
We
there.
have the community solar, if you were to do that.
We did a campaign for community solar already. So the only campaign that would be open would be the heat pumps and the signing up for EVs. I believe those are the other two. We already did community solar with Ulster County.
You did already do community solar, but now they're allowing tiers for campaigns. So you did one tier of community solar, but if you got these, you could also get 2 additional tiers of community solar campaign points and grants.
Depending on the additional subscribers.
Exactly. Yep. But even if we check this off, let's see. We've got 800, we've got 500.
300.
And we've got 300. So
Pretty.
is that working? Is that math working out?
Yeah, that's 5.
Yeah, that's 5. So
Oh.
Without doing the community solar.
without doing the community solar,
So we got it.
you've got it.
Let's go for gold, guys. Let's go for gold.
So that's 100,000 right there. And I
That we
believe
can apply for. That we can apply for.
that you will, right, once you submit this. And I just wanted to, is the town of Saugerties, excuse me, disadvantage, have a disadvantaged community? I meant to check this
Probably not.
before.
No, I don't think we are. I think
Okay.
it's percentage is too small. I looked into that once and unless it's changed.
What's the
City
address
of-
for town
yeah.
hall?
City of Kingston does, but not Saugerties.
Not Socrates. Okay. Okay. So $100,000, which is phenomenal. And, you could spend that $100,000 on all sorts of different things, right? Like, Kathleen, I know you're familiar with these, we've had these grants in the past, but this could be used for putting new solar up. It could be used for buying an electric vehicle, buying more charging stations, doing building upgrades, installing heat pumps to municipal buildings. There's all sorts of things that you could use that funding for. So that's really exciting.
Actually, one of the things that we don't have is a DC charging station.
Mhm,
And I just got a quote on that. That's $45,000
mhm.
for a fast charging station. And it seems with the transition to more electric vehicles, it would be good to have one because our others are the slower ones.
It would, yeah. And you all are pretty close to the highway, right? Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we're
exactly.
close to the thruway.
Yep. So I think that could be a just stop screen sharing so I can
Eleanor,
see some
this
of you.
has been very, very productive. I really want to thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I think
I-
we can follow up with any other questions. We do have another presentation coming up with
Manager.
County Legislator
Thank you, Eleanor.
Joe. So
I will send an email with all of the stuff I showed you and the follow-up documentation, and I'll get an answer for Skip on the
Thank you.
how to fill out that renewable energy form. You
Great.
got it.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
having me.
much.
Thank you very much.
you, Eleanor.
All right.
Eleanor,
you.
can you stay on a minute? I want to have you here a
Oh,
little bit.
yes, for the solar sighting. Absolutely.
Hey,
Thank
Mona.
you.
okay. Manager, I really appreciate your being here this evening as well to talk about the solar mapping tool or solar mapping toolkit and what we can do to get involved with the program. I did send around the information to everyone, and I'm sure there's lots of questions. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Manager, and go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. And I just put the invitation in the chat. I know I heard you say you sent it around. For several years, I think we've done 5 or 6 trainings in the Mid-Hudson region to get people to understand what wise siting of solar and other renewables and storage is on the ground in their community. So we're not cutting down hundreds of acres or covering over prime farmland. And of course, the exception there is a very valuable and compatible use is agrivoltaics, where there's solar on active farm, and that can provide a little extra income for the farmer. But we really, as we transition to renewable energy, we really want to do it wisely. And the solar mapping tool training goes over wise land use and also shows how to look at that land use on various layers of mapping layers that can be added to come up with good locations and areas that need to be protected or where development should be prevented, and kind of everything in between. And there are a lot of different criteria. I don't want to try and explain the whole course, but I will say we've had excellent feedback, and some municipalities have moved forward. Let's see, I would say New Paltz, Rosendale, Hurley, and to some extent the city of Kingston have developed reports, and several have presented to their town board, planning board, environmental commission, etc. And those municipalities are now approaching actual implementation. And by the way, if Eleanor is still on, I would like to see, and I've talked to the folks at DEC, points for using this process. Right now, we're using Scenic Hudson's mapping tool, but it's my understanding that there is now a state law requiring NYSERDA to develop a mapping tool for the entire state. So if municipalities are going to go through this training and apply it, it really helps them to do that, what I call wise solar siting or siting of renewables. And I looked through our database and I couldn't find if anyone from Saugerties has taken the training. But I would hope that we could enroll 1 or 2 people. It's 4 sessions from 7 to 8:30 or 9. Basically 4 weeks in March. We skipped the last week in March. I think it conflicted with the county planning board, and planning board members are really good people to participate. So the details are in the link in the chat, and I know that Mary sent those around to you as well. And I think I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions.
Did you say 7 in the morning or 7 at night, 7 to 8:30 a.m. or p.m.? I would imagine it was p.m.
It's evening. Yeah,
Yes.
it's 4 Thursday evenings, 3 in March and 1 in April. And at the end of February, on the 22nd, we always do a watch party. So Scenic Hudson has developed an overview that is a video, which you can watch on your own. But it's kind of fun to do it all together and start to get to know each other. We have 13 people signed up, mostly from Ulster County. And we have found over the years that 15 to 20 is an ideal size. It's a tool you can teach yourself, but there is such synergy from working with others, 2 or 3 in a town working together, and then coming on the sessions and learning and hearing each other's questions and how people overcome obstacles and so forth. So all this is part of let's see, at the end of December, 9 people were appointed to an Ulster County 70 by 30 renewable energy working group. And that's a long way of saying that it's kind of a brain trust of people that really know energy, finances, development, land use, all of the things. And our goal is to prepare a draft report that says the details, how Ulster County will achieve the state goal of 70% renewable energy generation. The state is rightfully pushing beneficial electrification of vehicles, which we were talking about earlier, and buildings. But where's that energy going to come from? If we switch to an electric-based economy, with, especially in our buildings and vehicles, we don't want that to mean that more fossil fuel is going to be burned, or those of you who know, I worked for Clearwater for 23 years, and we want to also be sure it doesn't result in prolonging the life of aging nuclear facilities. So the way to achieve that is to maybe take some of the money that you've earned by being innovators and out front, and invest it in a solar on a municipal building, or whatever makes the most sense. And that's the purpose of the tool, is to give give each municipality the tools to assess what's the low hanging fruit, what's in between, and what you really want to try and avoid. And I was speaking with someone, I think it was with Mike, who pointed out, and first of all, I want to congratulate you on how much solar has been put into place in Saugerties. I've attended some of those meetings, and you really are leaders. But apparently there have been some projects that did not move forward because of the interconnection costs.
Right.
One of the things that we're promoting is finding a way that usually that full cost of interconnection falls to the first developer in an area. But if there were several projects that all needed interconnection and they were sort of grid related, they could share the costs and keep those costs down. So Tom Conrad from Marbletown is on our committee, and he did some searching around, and he thought that Saugerties might benefit by this idea of multiple facilities sharing interconnection costs. And we can explore that more, but I'm hoping that one or two of you will consider joining this training. And again, I'll stop and see if there are any more questions, because I don't want to take too much time.
Well, let me just amplify those two properties. Since Eleanor is here also, we got two experts. One property is county owned, and that is a property up in Quarryville that is now owned by the county. They were originally going to put in a solar array on the property when Pat Ryan was the executive, and the hookup costs were too great. And so that property exists there. They have they did build a tower there, an emergency tower. So the county is utilizing that property. It is not around any really would not impact any residential areas. And it's sitting there, and that's part of the problem. The other property is a private property on Churchland Road, which a private person wanted to come in. Ken knows the property. It is not farmland. It's basically clay. They wanted to put in a brick development business there, and that was shot down. So it's not agriculture. It's right off the thruway. They have the same problem. I mean, if we could get those two properties online, I think that would be a tremendous benefit.
Well,
And
there's another factor actually involved here too, with the passage of the Build Renewables Act. I went to a seminar with Sharisa, and both of those properties, she's in touch with the New York State Power Authority. And by that act, they're given power to either help initiate or further or finish off projects. And I gave her both those names, and
Good.
they're in front of NYPA now. So part of those costs and part of the other problems, that's one of the ways that they might be further, bolstered in their thing. So that's actually, they're both under consideration in front of NYPA.
And the people on this working group can provide help and expertise and, get you across the finish line on some of these projects. So, think about it. You have until, I think the first session is March 7th. And ideally, it would be nice if one or more of you could join us on February 22nd. But if not, you can watch the video on your own and be, just fold right in. And again, congratulations on the amount that you have done and have done wisely. And just bear with me another minute. I just want to say that I remember when that open space was a huge tire dump. And one of the things I learned from Socrates that I've carried through my career, first on the town board and now in the legislature, is the value of collaboration. Because everybody was at each other's throat, blaming someone. The developer was blaming the DEC, and the Sportsmen's Association was, meanwhile, the neighbors were in danger. And I was the county recycling coordinator at the time, and I brought everybody together and I said, let's agree that while we're here and meeting, that we'll focus on solutions. If you want to talk about how it got this way or the problem or the blame game, go have a cup of coffee or a beer and enjoy. But we all worked together and came up with a solution that was just magnificent. And the benefit to the sportsmen, to the neighbors, even the developer or the tire jockey, everybody came out ahead, and the DEC allowed the fine from the Catskill tire fire to apply to the cost of helping to pay the Sportsmen's Association and rent heavy equipment to load the tires, and they were removed and the area was landscaped. And then I was sitting in a public works meeting and I saw that property was on the agenda for solar, and I said, this is the icing on the cake. We not only solved the problem, but now we're going to add solar. So it's near and dear to my heart. And I want to help you guys find a way to bring that to fruition, because I believe that if any county in New York State can achieve 70 by 30, Ulster County can. We have all the right ingredients, and it's working together that gets the job done. So thank you for putting up with me. Sorry about the phone.
So I do.
I have to give a shout out to you because of your long career working on behalf of the environment, and we really appreciate all that you've done, and that I know you'll continue to do. So thank you so much. Carol, did you have your hand?
Yeah, I do. I was just wondering, is there a mapping being done about solar rooftop possibilities? Or is that because it's not owned by county or owned by municipality, it might be owned by private hands? But if we could figure out which rooftops would be the right place to encourage people to do solar, that would be great. Does anybody know of that? If there's any rooftop solar mapping?
I don't know. I just remember when we did Solarize Socrates, the different solar companies were able to view the property determine whether or not to determine whether or not they were suitable sites in terms of the trees and the position of the sun. So
right.
Other than that, I don't know that there is any standard out there.
Because there are. I'm sorry, Manager, go ahead.
One thing that is helpful is either renewing a solarized program or creating it. But the idea is the solarized program helps homeowners and small businesses to figure out how they can, pre-screens, make sure that everything is in order and helps them save money, and also points them in the right direction in terms of incentives and rebates and so forth. So all of that will be in our draft report coming out in June. But between now and June, we are really hoping that most of the municipalities in Ulster County will participate in the mapping tool training, so that that is a strong foundation to move forward. And as I said, some of the towns have already been through the training and are now working on implementation. I think that question is an implementation question, and it'll come out in the draft report, which will circulate widely, and then that will give us additional ideas. So by the time we publish it and send it to the legislature in September, we really think we'll have essentially a roadmap to achieve 70 by 30, because we're going to get everyone participating. So, and for the municipalities, it's at the municipal level. What can you do on your own buildings and properties? It's at the business level. How do we get our businesses engaged? Because there are a lot of opportunities for rooftop or parking lot or whatever, and also residents. So those three levels. And now I really will stop. Sorry. Thank you
so much. Are there any other questions before we let Manager go?
I just wanted to clarify that this is a in-person participation. Is there any
It's virtual.
Oh, it's virtual. Oh, all right.
It's on Zoom.
That's
it's an
easier.
hour and a half on a Thursday evening times 4. And if you have any questions, I'm listed, and before I actually sign off, I'll put my email and phone number in the chat.
Thank you.
I'll be happy
I
to
just,
follow up too
it just happens that one of our meetings is on a Thursday night, but maybe we could.
I think I checked that already, and I don't think it coincides with the third Thursday. I think I checked that, and I don't think it's on our meeting
But it
night.
starts at 7, so we would be done.
That's the other point. It starts at 7. So, well, again, thank you, Manager, and we'll get back to you, and I'll certainly circulate your, your contact information as well for any follow-up.
Okay. All right, then I won't bother to put it in the chat. And each of the sessions is recorded, so if you have to miss one session, you can watch it and still be caught up for the next.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you so much, Manager.
Thanks, Mana.
My
And
pleasure.
I think we're saying goodbye to Eleanor as well. She just left us. Okay, so moving on to the next part of the agenda, the Repair Cafe sponsorship. I did get an email from a resident who lives in Berkeley Heights who wants to start a repair cafe in Saugerties. She's very excited about it. She's been working on it. She needs a venue to hold the repair cafe, the repairs. And she also would be looking for help to publicize the events when they occur. She's thinking about 3 events this year. She's just getting started. She has no funding. She's trying to raise $150 to get the kit to get started. So she contacted me to see how perhaps we could, help or support. So my suggestion is, because she is not a not-for-profit, she's one gal who's really into this, she would have to pay, I believe, $65 to use the senior center for those 3 events. She's not an organization. She doesn't have the money. So my suggestion was, or is, would we be willing to act as a sponsor for the Repair Cafe? If we are a sponsor, I think we could go to the town and we could, her group could use the senior center without cost, which would be a real big help to her. She mentioned about volunteers for the Repair Cafe. I explained to her that our volunteer time is really, really all consumed at this point. I said we might be able to recommend folks in the community who would want to volunteer to help with the repairs, but I said I would not. I don't believe that our group would actually, become involved to that extent. But I mean, if any of you individually would like to go and repair something, that's going to be up to you. So essentially, it would be being a sponsor, which means she could use the senior center, I hope, without charge. And I said I would certainly be willing to publicize when the events are, get them on the town website, get them on Climate Smart Saugerties website, and just spread the word around. And that would be, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm having spoken to her, that would be our commitment. So it's open for discussion. If the CCA would be willing to act as a sponsor, I would proceed. I'd get back to her, let her know, and then go forward. But the ball is really in her court. She's her name is, I think it's Linda Armour. She lives in Berkeley Heights. I don't know if anyone knows her. I don't. So,
sorry. Is she doing it through the Repair Cafe? I don't know if there's an organization at wide. Okay.
Yes,
so I would say, of course, I think we should.
She's working with that group. Yeah.
So what does it actually mean to be a sponsor?
As far as I'm concerned, it would mean that she would work under, I don't know that there's any specific definition. I asked her about that because I had seen on the website that in order to do a repair cafe in a town, you needed a sponsor. She did not know that. I said she was going to check on that. I don't know that there's a specific definition. I haven't seen one.
And I just wondered what requirements, not that they would be onerous, but just to, before you say, okay, I'll be a sponsor, know what that means legally. Are you responsible for actions? I don't know.
And also, aren't there existing repair cafes that, at least I've read about them periodically? Could she perhaps join one of the existing ones, or she wants to have her own?
She wants to have one in Saugerties. She says, I live in Saugerties. I would like to have one in Saugerties. So, but to Skip's question, that's something we should research, subject to, how shall I phrase this? Subject to any provisions, specific legal requirements as a sponsor. Would we be willing to serve as a sponsor for the Repair Cafe?
Yeah, I would be in favor of that.
Yeah,
I think it's a good thing to do. Yeah, as long as it doesn't, rope us into something that we don't realize, that we'll be responsible for.
Well, that's why I had the conversation with her, and I was very clear as to the two things that I would ask us to commit to, which is to get the senior center and to help publicize it. Those were the two. I said those would be the two aspects of our involvement. But I think, Skip, you raised a good question. Because would there be any insurance issues? Does the organization that she works under, are they insured? Would there be any liability? I think
those are all good questions. Yeah,
very valid, a very valid question.
Yeah,
So
that should.
I will follow up to that point. But
I was going to say, outside of that, I've been to two of them, and I think they're excellent. But they were held in Kingston, and a few years ago when John was running it. So I don't know where it's at right now, but I'm hoping that it's the same group of people, basically.
Is there an organization that gives her a template for running it?
It's an organization that provides the kits. I don't know the name of it. I could look it up. There is an organization that she works under. They provide a kit, which is $150 to get them started. So yes, there is an organization. I just don't happen to know the name of it, but I probably shouldn't say this, but I think maybe somehow behind the scenes, Sustainable Hudson Valley, Melissa's group, I think is
Mhm.
somehow behind it.
Right.
Because usually sponsorships means that you give some kind of financial, support to it. So,
Yeah, no, that was not part of my discussion with her, and that would not be part of her expectation that we would do. But to your point, let's get it clarified. What is there any, legal requirement or any liability that we would be subject to? So, anyone
Oh,
else?
I'm in the calendar of Repair Cafe Hudson Valley. So there, it's an organization that's still thriving. So
What is the name of it, Carol? Hudson Valley?
Repair Cafe Hudson Valley.
Okay. Does it talk about Sustainable Hudson Valley, Melissa's group at all?
I mean,
It definitely is Sustainable Hudson Valley.
okay.
John Wackman, who started it in
Yep.
the area, had been working with them and started to make that arrangement, and then he passed on, and
Mhm.
they have kept it going regionally ever since.
Right. It is, you're right.
And-
Sustainable Hudson Valley. Yep.
Okay.
It says
Thank you.
donations made through this link to the fiscal sponsor, Sustainable Hudson Valley.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so we're in agreement. We would serve as sponsors. I'll get clarification on the sponsorship. If there's anything, any commitment other than the two that we've just talked about, I'll get back to you. Otherwise, we can, I'll go forward with saying we will sponsor it in Saugerties. We good with that, guys? Everybody good?
that. Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, next on the agenda, the EMC report. I don't see Leslie here.
Nope, she's not here.
Yeah, okay. Manager Leslie is our representative to the Environmental Management Council for Ulster County. So we'll skip on that. Next item on the agenda is the Town Board Liaison Report. Our Town Board member, Zach, is unable to attend the meeting this evening. He did send an email report. I shared it with all of you ahead of time. If you have any questions or follow-up, Zach will be happy to answer them. You can contact him directly. I don't know if there was anything in the report that anyone wanted to comment on.
Yes, I was unclear from his report whether he was, it was about the the purchase of the Jeep Cherokee, and he seemed to think that that was not possible at this time. Was that your impression?
Well, that was the original. What happened is I saw the purchase of a gas powered vehicle for the Building and Parks Department, and I questioned why we were not getting an EV or a hybrid. So Zach said initially that in the future they would look for hybrids or EVs, and I said, why not now?
Yes.
So so what happened is I followed up with the town supervisor and Greg Torvis, who is obviously the superintendent who was behind purchasing the vehicle. So bottom line is, Eleanor, again, was fantastic. I emailed her about, first of all, I checked, and the Jeep Grand Cherokee is it does come as a hybrid. So that was number one. It does come as a hybrid. And number two, they wanted to know if there were any rebates or any incentives because the hybrid was more expensive. Yes, Eleanor got back to me. There are federal tax credits. So the town withdrew the motion from the agenda to buy a gas-powered, and they're now looking into the hybrid. It looks like the town will qualify for some of the tax credits. So it's going forward, and I do think the town will get a Jeep Jeep hybrid. I don't know which one. I don't know the details of it. I don't do cars, so.
That's great. That's great news. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Good work, Mary. You really got on top of it and pushed.
That's right.
Well, I mean, it's in our climate action plan
That's
that we can replace town vehicles with EVs or hybrids. So
Yeah.
that's what the town approves. So let's do it, guys, you know. Again-
Question, do we happen to know if, does the town buy these outright or do they lease them?
I believe they use the word purchase in the motion, so
Yeah,
I.
they usually buy them.
Yeah,
So-
the reason I bring that up is that there have been some constraints put around the Inflation Reduction rebates for EVs, that tie it to where the batteries are built, are made. So what were vehicles that may have been qualified in 2023 suddenly got thrown off the list of qualified vehicles for purchase. However, lease vehicles are a loophole for that.
Oh,
Well, the car they got for the wastewater treatment plant, that was a lease. A
oh,
3-year lease. That was, or an electric car, one of the first one that we bought, I guess.
So it sounds like it's an option still, potentially an option.
Well,
uh,
they were buying, they were buying, it's not a straight EV, it's a hybrid.
Sure.
And it has to be a plug-in hybrid. There was all these little technicalities that you get
Sure.
into. So,
I
It's-
looked that up on the NYSERDA website today, and that NYSERDA offers a $2,000 rebate at the dealer. And there's, with the Jeep, I looked on their list of approved vehicles. And there's a dealer in Kingston that sells them, but there is also a state website where you get the benefit of a state discount if you buy certain things. So I think they would look it up there first to find out if they could get a price through the state, whatever they call it, that they make bids and they sell things to the state.
It's the OGS, the Office of General Services.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, you put in what you want and then they put it out to bid for you.
I assume that's the method they would use.
I don't know. I would too.
but bottom line, it looks like we're going to get the hybrid. And so, okay, next on the agenda. Okay, planning board.
Well, we
All right.
we haven't met yet. And there's really not much on here except for the Villa residence that's going to be coming up next week. Where we're reviewing the site plan. And that's what I know so far. So if you're interested in the villa, you can come and listen in. It's not a public hearing, it's just reviewing information.
Carol, did I not see on the agenda that there's going to be a public hearing for a zoning change on the property from lower density to high density?
Yeah, there should be, but I don't see that. It's not on this one. It's not, obviously we don't.
You don't do
that,
zoning.
and it doesn't say or state, maybe that's in progress. That's what's happening right now for next week. So I'll let you know if there is more information on that zoning change. If it's made, not
I think that
not
was,
made, then we can't do it.
Zach did mention the update in his message.
Oh,
And
right.
Mary McNamara, Mary, could you send her Zach's message? She would like it.
Yes.
Okay.
Certainly. Yeah. Okay, and any other questions for Carol?
No.
Okay, next announcements. I just wanted to let everybody know that there is a program called Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program that the town is going to participate in. It's a program whereby it will evaluate the emissions from the landfill to try and see what the emissions from our landfill are and how to mitigate those emissions. If the municipalities who participate, there will be approximately $50,000 in services that the group will provide to the municipality. So Doug Meyer has agreed to participate in this. And the town hopefully will go forward with it, and hopefully we'll be able to get a report and see what the emissions are from the former landfill, and again, what mitigation actions could be taken to reduce them. So
Does this have largely to do with methane? Because I know that methane was a big question in landfills, trying to reduce the methane.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Elizabeth. That's exactly it.
And I don't know if they include plumes that would come out from the landfill going towards local wells. And I think they have test wells surrounding that area. I don't know if they're still in play or not. So
I see that mentioned, Carol. That's another question. I don't know the answer.
mhm.
They do have test wells because there's pollution from the landfill to the neighboring private wells.
Do we know if there's still active pollution or?
Yes, yes. Unfortunately. So Kathleen probably knows as much about that as anyone.
Well, as far as what I believe is still true is that they're still monitoring those wells. And they were trying to work out a plan when they do the well for the new animal shelter, that maybe they could be able to supply those homeowners with clean water from that well also. So I don't know if that's still the plan, but there was discussion about that previously.
Interesting.
Okay, any other announcements before we adjourn?
Well, so I went to a seminar on the Build Public Renewables Act, which our Assembly member, Sarahana Sharisa, was a sponsor of. And she gave a real good explanation of what it was. Basically, the act empowers the New York Power Authority to either initiate or support or continue citing renewable power sources, whether it mostly be solar or wind or possibly even geothermal. Part of that was she offered up a survey for the communities to point out possible spots or assets that they may have that that NYPA could be involved with him, because she thinks it's a really good thing. They've got money connections, but need to be pushed. So the survey is part of the push. It's part of my discussions with her that I did mention the two things that Mike mentioned, the 100 acres at Churchland and the one over in Quarryville, is possibilities. So she has brought that up to NYPA. But the rest of the survey I sent around to everybody. I don't know if anybody looked at it. If there's any other suggestions in how I filled it out, I asked for some feedback, and Mary got back to me, and I think Mike said something. But basically, I'm going to submit that. If anybody else has anything to add to it, that would be nice to know. If not, I'm just going to, and I don't have to do it in the name of the task force or CCA, but I thought I put it out to you guys to look at. So I'm going to, unless somebody else has any kind of additions to it, I'm going to put that out.
Skip, could you resend that? Because I saw it sort of buried in one of those linked emails and I've lost it. Could you resend that email?
Yeah. Basically what I did is suggested those two sites. Plus, on one of the charts she has, she saw a link between NYPA's operations directly supplying CCAs. So our problem was getting 100% renewable, from the grid, basically through Joule. And there seems like there would be a connection to get 100% renewables directly from NYPA. So I added that to the suggestions also, that we could really use that, any community could. But I thought that was a real smart way of going about that, because it was so much, we had so much trouble, sussing out what happened and what happened to us with our first thing around. Having NYPA as a source would be much better than just putting it out to the general public from other ESCOs. I will send that again to you.
I have something, Mary and everyone. We will hear next week whether or not we will receive $100,000 building decarbonization grant that will help offset the cost of the new chiller at the ice rink.
Okay.
As you know,
Yay.
that went up from about
Right.
500,000 to over $1 million, the cost of that, after COVID. And this is a new grant program, and we asked if we could apply, even though the process, it's in process right now, putting the new chiller in and getting it going, and they said we could. There's only one $100,000 grant. So keep your fingers crossed. I hope we get it, because they only have a $269,000 grant from the state. And that's woefully inadequate for the cost of that new chiller. And one other thing I want to mention to you, I don't know if any of you have read your communications from Central Hudson lately, but I'm going to read you something right now. A message about the CBC charge on your next bill. Dear valued customer, the customer benefit contribution charge was established by the New York State Public Service Commission as a monthly dollar per kilowatt charge to recover public benefit program costs from residential and small commercial customers that install behind the meter generation and interconnect on or after January 1, 2022. The CBC charge is applicable to customers with on-site solar, wind, or micro hydroelectric resources with demand less than 25 kilowatt, fuel cell, micro CHP, and anaerobic digesters. Now, to me, I just installed solar. This is the second charge that Central Hudson, if it applies to me as someone who has an on-site solar resource,
I'll say yes, it does.
it's a charge because there's public benefit programs which may help people who can't pay their bill. There's another charge called the I think it's the RDM charge. Look on the back of the first page of your bill. So they can recover what the discounts they're giving or whatever programs they're doing to help people pay for their bills. So we're getting charged twice for the fact that they're producing less electricity and getting less money from producing electricity. The RDM charge says it right on the bill. On the back of the first page, there's a definition. I think it's outrageous that people who are trying to be energy efficient are being charged because Central Hudson is getting less business. It's outrageous.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
I
agree.
can, if you want more explanation to that, I can give you, because I've been involved in that. I've been going through Hitchie's office and Sharice's office to find out about this. What people don't realize is there's something called on your bill when you're not solar, it's called the SBC/RPS charge. That's probably on everybody's bill. You just don't realize it's in that litany of extra charges. And it's a percentage of the number of kilowatt hours that you use to do what Kathleen just said, to reimburse Central Hudson because they have to help out, lower income people. There's two issues here. First of all, their ratepayers should be paying for this. This is part of their business. But second of all, everybody's already doing it. And what happens when you get solar or other renewable energy sources, and that litany of charges disappears from your bill because you're charged by solar. And they realize, oh, we're missing out on this. So starting in 22, they made it so that this CBC charge replaced that charge that doesn't get thing anymore.
Oh.
Well, the other part of it, and what's more outrageous, okay, if it was the same, it's supposed to be the same or less than your charge that you were helping Central Hudson out with before. Mine was 4 or 5 times as much. And I've been in trying to get that straightened out for months. So.
Well, I had an RDM charge one month that was $36, $36 or $38.
Right.
And that's how I discovered what that was. I said, what is this?
Right.
And then I found the definition of it on the back of the bill.
Yes.
And it's to help recoup money that they're not getting from solar people doing their own solar production and things. In addition to a monthly charge, just having you hooked up to the grid.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, I don't have battery storage.
Right.
So you have that monthly charge just for being hooked up to the grid, whether or not you use any electricity. Then you have the RDM charge. Now you have this CBC charge. I don't understand how the Public Service Commission or the Public Authority, whatever it is.
Yes, it's the Public Service Commission that
How
okayed.
they are allowed to do this. Who is giving them permission?
They make the decisions. They're petitioned by
No.
Central Hudson.
I brought the RDM charge up to Hinchy's office, and I'm going to contact both offices, Hinchy and Shrethna, about this CBC charge that's coming up.
CBC?
It's outrageous. It's just
Called
outrageous.
CBC stands for Customer Benefit Contribution.
And it's not to my benefit, for sure.
Gosh,
So Amanda Jo has her hand up.
yeah.
Oh dear, I'm afraid I may have forgotten. Oh, I wanted to be sure people knew that there's a rate case underway, and what was Citizens for Local Power, now Communities for Local Power, is actively engaged. Ulster County is actively engaged. And an organization called PULP, which is to protect consumers. And so there are many people involved in the rate case raising these same concerns, and we'll see how it gets sorted out. But unfortunately, for better or worse, the Public Service Commission has a lot of jurisdiction and is not easily influenced, but that's what we got, so we got to work with it. And I do think the New York Power Authority is going to be very valuable to municipalities. That was brought up before.
Okay, anyone else? Rob, I see Rob is here and it's not on the agenda. But
Yes.
Rob, I don't know, it's not on the agenda, and I don't know if you wanted to mention anything about the community greenhouse gas inventory that you've been working on. Perhaps we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting, but if there's any announcement you wanted to make about that.
Not so much an announcement. I'm not sure if some emails got just missed in communication, but one of the issues that we have, one of the things that we have to identify is the population of folks that are on septic versus town sewer. Who could we go to for that sort of information?
Okay, who's on septic? You know what? I think Melanie, who is running the program for us.
Yeah, I did reach out to Melanie, and she said we'd have to go, that's something that the town would have to determine, that they wouldn't have those specific numbers.
Well, the water department should know that.
Rob, contact Michelle Haynes. She's the secretary to the water department.
Michelle Haynes, okay.
And she would have all the, at least on the town level,
Right.
the information.
Okay, great. Yep, I will reach out.
Very good.
Can we move on to the CAC portion?
I think we're past due time. How about a motion to adjourn the task force meeting? Mike,
so
are you
moved.
making a motion to adjourn? Second,
I make the motion.
I'll second it.
okay. Meeting adjourned on to the CAC business. Okay, number one, approval of the CAC minutes from January. Is there I move, is there a second?
Yeah.
Hearing a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Okay, next on the agenda, very important, groundwater protection and supply. There's kind of two issues here. One is a discussion that we started at the last meeting with respect to protecting our groundwater. And then the other aspect of it is what's going on with our water supply. Is it adequate? Will it be adequate for future development? So Ken has been looking at a program that addresses protecting the groundwater. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Ken, to talk a little bit about the program and perhaps something that our group would like to suggest that the town participate in.
Okay, thank you, Mary. This is a DEC program. It's in its second incarnation because the first was very successful and they wanted to continue and grow it. It's called the Drinking Water Source Protection Program. And I sent around to everybody a copy of the latest issue that they put out, the newsletter magazine that they put out. It had a link to a list of all the communities that are participating already. There are a number of them. There are a couple of them in Ulster County at this point, the city of Kingston, I believe Rosendale, I believe New Paltz, and maybe one or two others. But it's been growing in Ulster County. All you have to do is send a request to the DEC, to this program, that your community has an interest in it, and that you have a particular person who has agreed to serve as your contact person. They will then be in touch with that person, talk about what the program involves, what they would provide, and what the contact person and the municipality would be doing or need to do over time. It is free. They provide free technical support. In essence, they help you develop a plan for identifying and protecting your drinking water source aquifers. Now, we do have in our town zoning law a particular section on aquifers. It's the aquifer protection part of the zoning law. And in fact, the current version of the zoning law, which was passed in 2008 as a revision of the original 1989, did improve protection of groundwater, source water protection, the aquifers. In the original, the protections were very limited. And in fact, there were only 8 or 9 business uses that were prohibited from being on town aquifers. And there's a lot of our property, the town's property, that is over town aquifers, not just the Winston Farm, but many others as well. In 2008, when they revised the zoning law, the water protection part of the zoning law was a major area, and the town commissioned a report, which I believe Mary sent around to everyone. Steve Winkler wrote it for an organization, environmental organization. It is mentioned explicitly in that section of our current zoning law, and it was based on that the protections were increased. In fact, the businesses that were no longer allowed to exist on top of the aquifer, any of the aquifers, went from 8 or 9 to 21 or so. So we do have built-in protections. The problem is that the zoning law can be changed by the town board if it so pleases. They do have to go through 2 public hearings, but once they have the public hearings, it is completely up to the town board by simple majority vote to change the zoning law. Now, the zoning law has been changed a number of times since 2008, but in small ways. And we talked about tonight, one of the ways that they are thinking of changing it, the Spalding Lane Apartments, changing it to allow that area to go from moderate density to high density, or low density to moderate or high density. It's a local change. It would affect just that area. But anything that changes the zoning law as it deals with aquifers would change how a major portion of the land that the town encompasses could be treated. So it would be helpful to have something supporting a protection of our drinking water, our aquifers, outside of, beyond the town's own zoning law, so that if something was happening that we considered a danger to the environment, a danger to the water that we use every day, then we could point to that as something external, bigger than us, the DEC's program, and say, look, we're not the only ones saying that this would be a danger to our very valuable and scarce drinking water supply. The DEC was involved with us in trying to strengthen our protections, and this would go against what they recommended. So all we need to do, if we want to, is to recommend to Zach Horton that he make a request to the town board that they appoint someone to serve as a contact person, and that person be asked to use the form in the magazine, the newsletter I sent around, to contact this program and express interest in talking to them about joining it. Simply interest in joining it and seeing what that would involve. And that's where we are. We would need to make a motion to that effect and request that Zach take that to the town board.
Fine, I'll make the motion.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Now, Ken, are you suggesting that the contact person would be a town employee?
I would suggest that the contact person be Kathleen. She is a member of our group. She works on special projects for the town. She knows the people in the town offices and the town board. And I've asked her if she would be willing to serve in that capacity if she were asked to do so. Kathleen?
Yes, I would be willing to do that, sure.
All right.
Kathleen, that would be really very, very helpful. I mean, working for the town and being part of our group and coming to all our meetings, I think that would be a perfect fit. So, okay, so.
I think so too. Thank you, Kathleen.
Now,
I'd like to piggyback on what Ken is talking about. I've been thinking a lot about not only water protection, but water supply. And I see the train coming down the track. And that involves development, the extent of development, and our access to water by the town, and ultimately the GEIS for the Winston Farm moving along, although slowly, and that is going to be where the aquifer is going to be affected. I want to give you a little background in terms of water supply mainly, because there's a pressure that's going on. In that Winkler, Steve Winkler's paper in 2005, about 8,600 individuals get their water from the reservoir, about half from the village, about half to Glasgow, Malden, and Kings Highway. About 11,000 get it from groundwater wells. So we're not talking about aquifers, we're talking about a reservoir, and we're talking about groundwater wells. We're not talking about taking any water from a reservoir at this point. The only place that I saw anybody tapping into the reservoir, and I might be wrong, I saw in the papers that Hudson Valley Water Supply has a well into the aquifer, and they are under trouble right now in terms of their ability to supply clean water. They did a water accessibility study. At least Mike Tayano from the planning board did a report in 2022, and he was very concerned about the level of water available to the town and the level of development. And he saw the two merging together. Recently, I think we just got it. The village just put through their new contract for water, and they're putting the screws on the town. There's a increased surcharge. I don't know if the meter readings are going up at all. I'm not sure about that, but it is the same amount of water that they're supplying, 650,000 gallons a day, that they supplied 5 years ago. So they're not supplying us with any more water than we got 5 years ago, yet the level of development is going way up. I did get some information from the water department, and I can upgrade it, but basically back in about 2021, I got some reports just for a month, and it showed that we were using about 2/3 back then in 2021 of the available water from the village. That's 3 years ago, and the development is increasing every day. So we are rapidly moving to the point where the village is not going to be able to supply us with water. So that's where my concern comes in, because we're at the point at which the Winston Farm evaluation will come in. And at that point is when the aquifer is going to be tapped. And I think as a CAC, we have to come up with a plan. Ken's plan certainly helps with the protection aspect of the thing, but it's a two-pronged thing. It's not only the protection of the water, it's the possible supply of water. And what is the town going to be doing in terms of working with the developers? I don't know. Is there going to be a way of the town tapping that water to go into the village supply so we get credit for it? I don't know. But certainly the town board is going to have to come up, just as Ken said, with the zoning change. And I think as a CAC, we have to start to really think about what we want to see in that deal with the developers that ensures not only that the water is safe, but that in the event that we need an access to water from the aquifer, we will have it. So I just throw it out today. I'm not meaning to come up with any solutions today, but that's what's coming down the road. And it's going to be, it'll be sometime this year. I don't know what they're going to put out, but we should be ready.
Carol, do you have your hand up?
I do. I know we've discussed this previously about the idea of trying to understand what zoning allows for developers right now, and trying to figure out what kind of water supply would be required by those developers. depending on where the zoning is. And the high density is obviously the one where we would care the most about trying to make sure that there's enough water supply for that, or what would be required, and maybe we need to change our zoning. So that's, I think you were sort of referring to that right at the end, right, Mike?
Well, I think
Zoning.
what I'm hearing from Fred is that they would have pressure on the developer to, of course, save open space and create a more high density building to allow, so
Right,
so that's the leverage that the town has.
Right,
What I'm saying is we really have to get past behind Fred and the town board to be tough in terms of what zoning restrictions we are going to be placing on it, as well as what additional protections we're going to be making. So I think what Ken is saying, what I'm saying, is basically the same thing. It's just two different
sides of it. But, I agree that you can put pressure on the developers to do some containment of land use and doing high density development, but that still means a lot of water for those residents.
Yes, absolutely.
So where does that come from? And, every single time we tap into the ground, my understanding is that that sucks from some aquifer nearby, even if you have a well. So, I don't know if we understand the resources that are really underneath as aquifers and how much they could supply. And maybe this is a crazy request, is to find out what we have in terms of water supply and how many people can it support.
That was my question. That was my question. What is the technology that allows us to see what the water supply is in the aquifer? And I don't know the answer, and I'm sure the hydrologists, and I'm sure there probably is technology out there that, and I think that would probably be one of the first things we would want to know, is how much water supply do we have in the aquifer? And how we would determine
how fast it recharges.
and how fast it recharges, which is another big issue.
So these are things that when this report comes out, we have to be ready with these questions. That's what I'm saying. And where's the town going to get water? And the other thing that I would suggest is there has, according to my research, Chase and Companies, an engineer worked for the town in 2008 and did a development, what was on the horizon. That was in 2008.
Right, that was a long time ago.
We need to get the town to take a look at, first of all, the level of development since 2008. I know in Winkler's report, it showed the development line going up from 2000 to 2005. It certainly has gone up, and we need to know what the development, when is that going to meet, where the development and the source of water is, right there, where we don't have another source of water. So I think we need also for the town to start to think about another study of the development rate within the town. And to see from 2008, the last study, to 2024, we need to see a graph of development, see what the rate is. So these are just some things that I think should happen. I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
I was about to answer yours, and I see other hands ahead of me, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Carol, do you want to finish, and then we'll go to Kathleen and to Mary?
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. Development rates is one thing, but I also believe that we need to know how many units could be done on a particular plot of land, with zoning allowing that to happen.
You don't know.
That would give us a sense of how many people and give us a sense of how much water, you know, sort of formulaically, and then do we have it? And do we, if we don't, or if we're so tight, we should start changing the zoning.
Mhm.
But how do we know how much we have?
Right, and that's the big question.
Well, I'm sure the technology is out there.
I think it exists too, but I don't really know much about it. It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you.
Kathleen, you wanted to ask a
Yeah,
question?
just briefly, I read that article that you sent around, Mary, from the New York Times about the issue of water through in places in the country that are not, their water sources are not recovering the way they used to. So the issue, I think, is really right on. This issue is important. And I know someone mentioned once, maybe we should have a moratorium on development. The thing is, what really struck me about that article is that normally the water soaks into the ground and replenishes some of these underground water sources. But with climate change and the very extreme storms, the water runs off. It doesn't necessarily
recharge,
replenish those aquifers and wells and things. So it is really a concern. And I agree with you. I think you need some kind of a study. I don't know how long that takes or how much it costs, but it seems not to do it would be really irresponsible and short-sighted.
Okay.
Oh, I'm wondering if we should think about contacting the town board in terms of upgrading the study that was done in 2008.
Yeah, I think so. I think, Mike, if you wanted to just put together sort of a draft request or recommendation, and we can send it around and perhaps at the next meeting formalize it. Does that seem to work as a way of going forward?
I can put something together.
Because I mean, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot to consider. But the study would be a focus at least to address part of the problem. And then we'll also go forward with what Ken is suggesting in terms of the protection of what we have.
Yeah, it could just basically be a request based on what we're seeing coming down the road.
A request or a recommendation?
I would say recommendation.
I would too, recommendation, okay. Okay, anyone else on this topic? Mary, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mike, for bringing this up, and Ken as well. I have spoken casually with Fred and with Leanne, and they did feel that the CAC is the proper route for this conversation to be developed. And that reminded us that the CAC oversaw the 2005 study, so that there's precedent for that.
Right.
Steve Winkley, who did that study, now works for Chase and Company, that's now called Labella, and he's eager to come back and update, or not update the study, to go into greater depth into what does exist. It is also Labella who's been hired by the Winston Farm owners to assess the volume of the wells that are being considered.
But we couldn't really use Steve Winkley then. Be a conflict of interest.
Well, if he's studying Glasgow or if he's studying other areas in the town, I hear you. I do think that he and Labella are some of the best people in the area, but there's Ty Gimbon and some other engineering companies, correct? But again, there is a sense at the town board that the CAC would be the perfect oversight for this. And the program that Ken mentioned also has funding available, very big, deep pockets for purchasing watershed lands around a well. And that's often been something that the village has mentioned, that they didn't have the money to spend to buy more than, what is it, a quarter of an acre is like the all they're required to surround the wellheads. But that I also see help, please explain if I'm wrong, but it seems like there's a gap between regulations, laws, and the planning board when you're reviewing a project, that there's not enough checks and balances for making sure that there's enough water available. And then in terms of the amount of water, it sounds like at the moment there's sort of two things going on at the village, that they want to price the town residents a higher rate, but they also want to penalize the town when we use more than is our allotted amount. And so Mike Hoff was saying that the real issue is in the summer when HITS is in operation, that there's a big draw on the demand. He's saying that there are tanks that exist that you could sort of maybe have an extra tank that could store water, but that yes, overall, there's enough water, but there's certain times of the year where the demand is greater than what the existing amount can handle. And then I guess I wanted to just briefly touch on what you mentioned, Ken, with the Hudson Valley Water Company. As I understand it, they are operating, in Mount Marion is the only area they're operating in the town of Saugerties. I could be wrong, and that they are sitting on top of the Plattekill aquifer, and that Plattekill aquifer is even larger, much larger than the Bearsville, Beaverkill aquifer. And I don't know if you all have kept track of, the county executive has been in touch with the PSC about having a different operator handle the Hudson Valley Water Company. Ideally, eminent domain happens. I know that that's something that Fred wants and that Michelle Henchy's tried to help with, taking over that private water company, because it is sitting on top of a large amount of water. So then one other thing is that Fred has been in contact with Jim Quigley, supervisor of Ulster, to purchase water from the town of Ulster, which would be basically purchasing water from the town of Ulster that's purchasing it from the city of Kingston. So it would be Cooper Lake Reservoir. So it's a public source, but we would be paying as a customer, not as an owner. So those are a couple of the different things that I see of issue, and everyone is right that climate change is making our water supply that much less predictable.
Yeah, that would sound like we would be less self-sufficient. We're starting to look out to other townships to supply water. Mary, can you send me just a few of the main points that you think we should send on to the town board, and I'll kind of put it together with whatever I'm going to say, and then we'll be able to send it around to CAC before the next meeting. Just the main things that you think need to happen.
Okay, and it sounds like
you have the expertise much more than I do.
It sounds like there are many different people here who have different perspectives, and Ken, what you've offered was really valuable. But I would say the Winston Farm story is not over. And I've heard different things about whether it would stay in private hands or would eventually become a public source. So,
Well, we'll see.
but yeah. Oh, and just the village of Saugerties did engage the drinking water source protection program. So Grant Jung did come and meet with the village. He didn't want to get involved with the Winston Farm issue. He now works for the EPA. He no longer works for the DEC, but it's an excellent program. So,
Okay, well, thank you, Mary. I know, Ken, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. I just want to remind everybody that the report we're all talking about, the 2005 report, the focus of that was protecting the water supply, keeping it clean. It was not looking at all at the question of whether we would have enough water in future for our purposes, because at that time, development was nothing like it has become since then.
Right.
Over the next 19 years, it's grown much more than linear. And as far as I can see for the future, from all the reports of what's being brought to the planning board and the ideas of developments in various parts of the town, it looks as if development will continue to be on the rise. So it has to be made clear in any recommendation to the town board that they commission a new version of that report. It has to focus on both of those prongs that Mike was talking about, both the preservation of the quality of the water, but also look at the amount of water and what the town needs to do to make sure that we have enough water in the future. The other thing is, I do recall that when the current owners of Winston Farm were asked about where they would get their water, they said there would be wells on their property, on the Winston Farm, that would take water from the aquifer at Winston Farm is above. And at some point, it was mentioned somewhere, and I don't remember where or by whom, that there would be a lot more water than they would need, and that water would then be made available to the town. I mean, it is town property, not village property. At some point in the past, the village was looking at the Winston Farm aquifer as being a secondary source in case they weren't able to get enough from their usual source. I don't see how that really would be possible since it's on town property, but maybe something could be done in negotiations between the town and the owners of the property in negotiating what they can do. Maybe part of it can be providing water from the wells that would be driven into the ground for the town's use, in addition to whatever we get from the village. Just something to think about.
Provided there's sufficient water to do that.
Correct. Correct.
Ken, I'd ask you too to send me any suggestions. What I'm going to do is collate what I'm thinking about, what Mary's thinking about, what you or anybody on the CAC is thinking about. Carol, in terms of planning board, send it to me. And that way I could try to assimilate something that we could then move ahead with. So if anybody wants to add to it, just email it to me and we can get the ball rolling. As far as the village, as far as I know, they have decided they don't want to get involved in any municipal water supply, I think, involving the Winston Farm. So that's off the table.
Okay, Mike, one thing I would like to ask Carol. I recall when I was on the planning board that anytime a new development was proposed and discussed, Mike Tiano would always raise the issue of how much water are they going to need, and does the town have enough water for everything that's being proposed? And I know that it was actually discussed, and there is something I've been reading planning board minutes, and there's something about how the planning board is deciding that there would be enough water for what is being proposed in the new development. Do they go to the water department and ask the water department to weigh in on this the same way the planning board always asks fire departments to weigh in on new developments, whether they would be able to handle anything that came up? What's the usual way of it being done now?
Well, I don't know, but Mary, I did send you.
Well, I'm asking Carol because she's on the planning board.
Yeah, I'm just saying that on terms of Mike Tayano's report, I sent it to Mary, and I think if Mary could send it along to everybody, that was done in 2022, and just what you're talking about.
Yeah. Obviously the engineers play a role in determining where this water is coming from, and sometimes they require pressure hydrants and different fire, that kind of, there's no, right now, nobody's saying that there's a lack of water. It's just how to get it there.
Okay.
Mm.
I
No,
think
that's true. I mean, nobody is stating that
Yeah.
officially.
We may get to that point. We're not there yet, but we may
Right.
get to that point. I do remember that Mike Tiano and I had a discussion about the water issue. I was concerned, he was concerned. Yes, we're not there yet, but he saw we were heading in that direction.
Yes.
And I had been in touch with Howie Post and asked him if at the end of one of our planning board meetings, there could be a discussion of exactly that question of the availability of water, and some determination could be made. So when new proposals came in, we would have some procedure
Right.
to use.
That's exactly what I'm asking for.
Yeah, me too.
Because there's no, the planning board can't make it up. It takes a study, I believe, and we have to understand what's coming up, what's possible, given the zoning that we have right now, is the way I look at it.
Okay.
And
So
then
let's ask the town
figure
board
out
if they
and we
would
support that
update,
zoning, right?
if they would update the 2005 report, but
Right.
now look at it from two different perspectives. Okay, thank you. Yep.
Yeah, and the other question that I had too is, I would love to know what the population change has taken place due to all this development, and how accurate was the 2005 in predicting where we might be now. Just curious. I haven't seen the report in a while. I don't even know if I've seen or read the whole report myself.
Yeah.
So if somebody has that report, I'd love to read it.
Which report are you talking
The
about?
2005 one that predicts, I think.
We can
Steve
send it
Winkler's.
out again.
Winkler, Steve's report?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, I was very encouraged to hear about this 2005 report, Steve Winkler, and that he's still available to step back in if there's not a conflict of interest. If he could study another part of Saugerties other than Winston Farm. I don't know. I mean, it's a very complicated situation, but I think Steve Winkley's study, the 2005 one, was the most basic one and the most comprehensive one, dealing also with the geological aspects.
Right.
So anything that could be updated from that would be very helpful, I would think.
What I'm gonna hopefully put in the report is we need an update of Winkley's report, which is basically protection. And the Chasen, which is now Labella, whatever, report, which is basically development. And those are two different things, and we need updates on both of them.
If I may, so from what I understand, the 2005 study was identifying general areas where groundwater existed. So it was never considered volumetric. It was considered more topographic in order to be proactive with planning where to consider restricting certain uses. So it was never about supply, it was about
We
location.
need that in there.
And the study that Labella is doing for Winston Farm is just Winston Farm, just that particular aquifer. Now that aquifer was part of the overall town-wide study, but just to be clear, you know, one is site specific and one was broad. To me, another resource, another program is that the county is actively promoting affordable housing. I forget the name of the exact program. I believe the town has signed on to that program.
Housing smart communities.
Thank you. So I think that if the town is doing a good job of offering a wider range of housing, slightly more affordable housing for some of it, not all of it, that we should ask for a certain amount of assistance from the county to help us assess our water supply or help with building new infrastructure, because I do see Saugerties as being one of the more proactive communities for addressing housing in a reasonable way. So I don't know if that feeds into to everything else you're thinking about. And Carol, I have heard at the village board, the village council meetings, they feel there appears to be a sense, or at least 6 months ago, that the town is agreeing to developments without double checking that there's enough water to meet it. So there are certain weeks, certain months of the year where the town is taking out more water than we've been allowed to take out. Maybe averaged over the whole year, no, but certain weeks, certain months, we are taking more than we're allowed to take. But Mike Hoff said it was coming out of Malden more than Glasgow. But I do think the idea of a procedure for both the village and the town to be more collaborative or communicative would be very, very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna
Add
say
on
that
to me, Mary.
if it is, right, if it's Malden, I can't think of any large development right around there. All of the developments.
No, Malden feeds hits. So
oh, hits.
Oh,
Okay.
which I had no idea of. So
Right. And HITS always underestimated their water supply going back years. So I'm not surprised that HITS is taking more water than they're supposed to during the summer months.
But to be clear, it's not that Malden is taking too much, it's that the total 650,000 gallons a day is surpassed.
Right, no, I understand, but you're saying that the town is pulling from the Malden supply more than it should on, you know, at peak. It's sort of like peak volume. It's overdoing it on those particular months. Is that what you're trying to?
The straw that's part of the Malden Water District is taking too much. However, the total calculation is surpassing 650.
Okay.
So it's not that they're penalizing Malden, it's that the total amount is being surpassed.
How about having HITS have a rainwater collection system?
There you go.
And they wouldn't have to take all that water.
Because I don't know
Right?
how much of their water is for bathing or, you know.
They're washing the horses, they're
Washing the
watering
horses down.
Yeah, I mean, they could collect rainwater for that.
I love it. I love it.
Do they
They
clean
wouldn't
the
do that
stables?
voluntarily, though.
Do they clean the stables with water or?
Probably.
Yeah, you know.
Hoses, yeah.
Yeah.
All that lovely composting. Anyway.
Well,
And in New York City, they did,
Digress, we do digress.
well, I just, a passion of mine has always been to encourage conservation. And in New York City, they did not have to build more reservoirs. Their population went up and their usage went down because they installed appliances that used less water. So
Right.
maybe that's also something, and maybe that's a climate smart communities project.
Good point.
Hey, just to get back to rainwater for a second, I have a rain barrel that's hooked up to my gutter.
Yep.
It holds 57 gallons of water. I bought it at Smith's Hardware. And if it fills up, then the water goes out through the gutter. But I use that for watering plants outside, and I use it every summer.
Very good
Really,
idea.
it's really convenient too.
This sounds great.
Okay, anything else? Because I know we're getting late, folks. What time is it? Week. Okay, can we wrap this up? Mike, you're pretty comfortable with the follow-up, I think.
yes, folks, send me your ideas.
Okay,
I
so,
just want to clarify one thing, Mary. The drinking water source protection program, someone is going to contact the board, the town board, and make sure they're okay with getting it started. And then I would be the contact person.
yeah, I think,
But someone is going to discuss it with the board.
yeah, I can mention that we should go through Zach. Maybe I could just do a memo to the town board or or just go through Zach. What I've done in the past, if we had a recommendation, it came from the CAC as a recommendation to the town board. So I'm very comfortable doing that. If,
As long as Zach doesn't feel that we've gone around him. But obviously, if he was here tonight, and I know he can't be always, then he would be a part of the conversation, and we could ask him directly. So I feel a little bit funny about Mary. Maybe you'd like to get in touch with him and tell him what the discussion was and the motion that was passed unanimously, and ask if he would like to present it to the town board from the CAC, or he would prefer that you do it directly. I don't want him to feel out of sorts with us.
Good point.
yeah, I mean, the only reason I mentioned is past practice, and in the past, I would always send a memo to the supervisor and the town board from the CAC, and this is our recommendation. So that's where I'm coming from. But I can certainly bring Zach into the process. I can certainly talk to him about it and say, I'll be doing a memo, because we definitely want his, support and any questions he might have.
Yeah, he's going to have a vote on the town board whether they agree with it or not. So I'd certainly like him to be involved in some way. Yeah.
Absolutely, no problem there.
Okay.
Okay, guys, shall we adjourn? I move.
I
All in
second.
favor? Second, all in favor? Thank you
Aye.
all.
Yeah.
Have a good rest of the evening and
You too.
weekend coming up. So
Thank
See
you.
you.
Bye,
Thanks,
see
everyone.
you next month.
everybody.
So long.
Bye-bye.
Evan.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night, Mary.